Hi friends! Okay, so today we're going to do chapter 14, Psycho-Cybernetics, Maxwell Maltz. And chapter 14 is how to get that winning feeling, okay, that winning feeling. Okay. And if I had to sum up this one really quickly, basically he's going to get to a point where he tells us that everything that's happened in your past, your history, you can use that to help you figure out how you got to where you are today right now. But going forward, you can't use blame or anything from the past. You are responsible for making your own choices moving forward, okay? So that's, if I had to sum it up in a nutshell. So here we go. Your automatic creative mechanism is teleological. That is, it operates in terms of goals and end results. Once you give it a definite goal to achieve, you can depend upon its automatic guidance system to take you to that goal much better than you could ever by conscious thought. You supply the goal by thinking in terms of end results. Your automatic mechanism then supplies the means whereby. So you're not forcing anything, you just get very clear on what you want, what the end goal looks like. So then if your muscles need to perform something, it's going to start doing that. The automatic mechanism is going to guide you more accurately and delicately than you could have if you had thought about it, okay? And if you need ideas, your automatic mechanism will supply them to you. And a lot of people, what they do before they go to sleep is they will clear out their mind. They will think of a problem or something they're trying to solve or something they're looking for answers for or ideas about. And they will tell their subconscious mind, okay, bring me those ideas. And then when they wake up, they have them. But you got to write them down immediately because they usually are fleeting and quickly out of your brain. Like you just forget about them once you start waking up. Okay. Think in terms of possibilities. But, so if you need ideas, your automatic mechanism will supply them. Think in terms of possibilities. But to accomplish this, you must supply the goal. So what do you really want? You're going to hear this in everything you study. What do you really, really, really want? Be very, very clear and specific. And to supply the goal capable of activating your creative mechanism, you must think of the end result you must think of the end results in terms of a present possibility. So you can never say, oh, I want a Porsche, but oh, I can't afford a Porsche. You have to say, oh, I want a Porsche and I would really enjoy a Porsche. I'd love a Porsche. It'd be so much fun. I could see myself in a Porsche. Okay? So you must think of the end results in terms of a present possibility. The possibility of that goal must be seen so clearly that it becomes real to your brain and nervous system. So it has to become real. You have to be able to feel it. So real, in fact, that the same feelings are evoked as would be present if the goal were already achieved. So you have to be able to feel as if it already happened. This is not so difficult nor so mystical as it may first seem or first appear. You do it every day of our lives. What, for example, is worry about possible unfavorable future results accompanied by feelings of anxiety, inadequacy, or perhaps humiliation. So basically, when you worry and you have fear, anxiety, inadequacy feelings, and humiliation feelings, when you're worrying, you're doing the exact same thing he's going to teach us how to do. For all practical purposes, we experience the very same emotions in advance that we would appropriate if we had already failed. We picture failure to ourselves, not vaguely, but in general terms, but vividly and in great detail. We repeat the failure images over and over to ourselves. We go back in memory and dredge up memory images of past failures. So like we totally just beat it until it's a dead horse, and then we wonder why it happens. Okay, so this is big. Remember what has been emphasized earlier. Our brains and nervous systems cannot tell the difference between a real experience and one which is vividly imagined. Our automatic creative mechanism always acts and reacts appropriately to the environment, circumstance, or situation. So the environment, what's present and happening, circumstances, and situations. The only information concerning the environment, circumstance, or situation available to your creative mechanism is what you believe to be true concerning them. So remember when he was telling us, make sure you take a step back when things are happening and you see what's really happening versus the meanings and the emotions and the feelings and the past memories that you bring to it. Okay, your nervous system can't tell the real failure from imagined failure. So he's going to keep showing us how we do this with worry, because at first it sounds crazy And then you realize, no, I've done that with worry. I've proved that fact with worry. So let's prove it fact with the positive side. So here we go. Your nervous system can't tell real failure from imagined failure. Thus, if we dwell upon failure and continually picture failure to ourselves at such vivid detail that it becomes real to our nervous system, we experience the feelings that go with that failure. On the other hand, okay, this is what we want to do. This is our goal. If we keep our positive goal in mind and picture to ourselves so vividly as to make it real and think of it in terms of an accomplished fact, we will also experience that winning feeling, self-confidence, courage, and faith that the outcome will be desirable. We cannot consciously peek into our creative mechanism and see whether it is geared for success or failure, but we can determine its present set. So what is your internal creative mechanism set to? Is it set for failure or success? So you can determine if it is presently set by our feelings. So when it's set for success, we experience the winning feeling. So you feel successful, setting your machinery for success. And so one simple secret is the operation of your unconscious creative mechanism is to call up and capture and evoke the feelings of success. So when you feel successful and self-confident, you will act successfully. When the feeling is strong, you can literally do no wrong. So when you feel everything is good and going your way, you just have this really great day. Have you ever had that? Or have you ever played sports where you just felt like you were on? Everything was just running for you and you were in the zone? That's what he's talking about. So the trick is he's going to tell you you're going to want to start pulling up those feelings ahead of time, and it actually influences what kind of day you're going to have or how the project or whatever you're working on towards your end goal is going to go. The winning feeling itself does not cause you to operate successfully. So it's not enough to just feel successful, but it is more of a nature of a sign of a symptom geared towards success. So it means you inside are not going to self-sabotage yourself. You're already thinking positive, like, I can do this. It is more like a thermometer, which does not cause the heat in the room, but it measures it. So as long as you're feeling positive, you always want to make sure you're leaning towards positive. However, we can use the thermometer in a very practical way. Remember, when you experience that winning feeling, your internal machinery is set to success. So you want to make sure you have that internal, happy, successful, confident feeling, and then you proceed. You don't want to feel that you're not worthy and keep succeeding, because you will fail. You're set for failure. It doesn't even feel good. This is a very key chapter right here. So, a key paragraph right here. He says, too much effort to consciously bring up spontaneity is likely to destroy spontaneous actions. So basically, you can't force it. It is much easier and more effective to simply define your goal or end result. Picture it to yourself clearly and vividly. Everything you study, even just setting goals, it has to be very clear, tangible, defined, very, 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 very clear. Everyone's going to tell you that. So picture it to yourself clearly and vividly, then simply capture the feeling you would experience if the desirable goal were already an accomplished fact. Capture the feeling you would experience if the desirable goal were already accomplished accomplished fact. So do your happy dance. Get excited. Contemplate yourself as surrounded by the end result that you wish to produce. Okay, live in that in your mind. Then you are acting spontaneously and creatively. Then you are using the powers of your subconscious mind. Then your internal machinery is geared to success. And he means by that, he says, to guide you in making the correct muscular motions and adjustments, to supply you with creative ideas, and to do whatever else is necessary in order to make the goal an accomplished fact. So things are going to start just working out for you. Sometimes you won't even be able to explain them. So then he's going to take a couple of examples from golf, and he's got this Dr. Carey Middlecoff, April 1956, Esquire magazine, and he talks about the winning feeling, and basically he says he had a winning feeling. He had a feeling that he was sure he was going to win the tournament. So it was a golf championship, Masters. And then he goes and says, here, because he's going to come back to this. So hold on. He says, I felt that every move I made in getting to the top of my backswing put my muscles in perfect position to hit the ball exactly as I wanted to. And in putting too, that marvelous feeling came to me. I knew I hadn't changed my grip in any way, and my feet were in the usual position, so he wasn't forcing anything. He was actually very relaxed, but there was something about the way I felt that gave me a line to the cup as clearly as if it had been tattooed on my brain. Okay, so this is going to come back soon, the tattooed on my brain. With that feeling, all I had to do was swing the clubs and let nature take its course. So that guy won. And he also says, Don Larson, the only man in history to pitch a perfect game in World Series, said the night before he had a crazy feeling that he would pitch perfectly the next day. Like, people have these feelings that they're going to do really good. And then he takes J.C. Penney's and how he heard his father say on his deathbed that I know Jim will make it. Okay, so then he talks about J.C. Penney's, and then he says, after making a fortune, he lost it all at an age when most men have long since been retired. He found himself penniless, past his prime, and with little tangible evidence to furnish reason for hope. But again, he remembered the words of his father and soon recaptured the winning feeling, which had now become a habitual feeling for him. And he rebuilt his fortune, and in a few years was operating more stores than ever. Okay, so he heard his father saying that I know Jim's going to make it, and he took that to be his winning feeling, and he like built J.C. Penney's, then it went down, and then he did it all over again because he just kept holding on to that winning feeling that I know I'm going to make it. I'm going to be successful. Remember, it's always going to be fall down 7 times, get up 8. Success is right around the corner. Don't quit. Okay, how that winning feeling made Les Giblin successful. So Les Giblin, he's famous for the Les Giblin Human Relationships Clinics, and he used imagination coupled with the winning feeling and for his own career. And basically he wanted to help people, and he got all this experience with human relationships, but his obstacle was he couldn't speak to people in public. So then what he did is he used a small example and extrapolated that to a big example. So basically he could talk to, when he was a part-time experience in he did part-time instructor work in the Army, so he used that experience when he was talking to small classrooms, or if he had like team meetings for sales and he was talking to those guys. And he recaptured in memory the feelings of success and confidence he had in talking to these small groups. Then he remembered his feeling of poise. And then he used the same feeling of poise and self-confidence and making those successful smaller talks. And then he used that so he kept that successful feeling. Then he used that and envisioned himself talking to big audiences and doing all of this work of human relationships that he really wanted to do. And he had this imagination that it would go over with a bang. It's going over with a bang. And then right at that moment, I felt I could do it. It just clicked in his mind and he felt elated. Remember, you got to feel this. It's got to feel real. So right at that moment, I felt I could do it. I had wielded the feeling of confidence and success from the past so teaching those smaller classrooms, to the picture in my imagination of teaching the big classrooms and presenting on stage and conferences of my career in the future. My feeling of success was so real that I knew right then and there I could do it. And then basically booking agents wouldn't take him, so he was booking all of his own speaking engagements, and then he was totally booked all the time, and he just kept doing his own speaking engagement bookings because he could, but he made it. And so he's an authority on human relationships, and that's how he got started. And then let's see, how science explains that winning feeling. Okay, so this is science. This is just not all hocus pocus stuff. The science of cybernetics throws new light on just how the winning feeling operates. We have previously shown how electronic servo mechanisms use of stored data comparable to human memory to remember successful actions and repeat them. This is a little bit different, so pay attention. Skill learning is largely a matter of trial and error practice until a number of hits, so successful actions have registered in memory. Okay, so that's when you're learning a skill. So you just keep going and you keep doing it until you get better and better, and you're getting all of these hits. And then they give you an example of an electronic mouse. So basically the mouse goes and it hits a wall and it turns 90 degrees, and it hits a wall and it turns 90 degrees, and then it goes, and then it, just goes through the whole maze, and it doesn't take it personally and it doesn't give it meaning. It just says, okay, that didn't work, turn 90 degrees. That didn't work, turn 90 degrees. So he's saying we need to just be a little bit more like that. The object of practice is to make repeated trials, constantly correcting the errors and until a hit is scored. When a successful pattern of action is performed, The entire action pattern from beginning to end is not only stored in what we call conscious memory, but in our very nerves and tissues. Especially if you played sports and you know how it feels when you shoot the ball and it just feels good. You can tell, even if your eyes are closed at the end, you know how it feels coming off of your fingers, or whatever your sport is, something that you know when you got it, where everything is just flowing nicely. That's kind of what he's talking about. And then he says folk language can be very intuitive and descriptive. When people say, I had a feeling in my bones I could do it. Okay, so all of these old sayings that people used to say, they're actually, a lot of them are based in truth. And then he comes back to the golf guy, so Dr. Kerry Middlecoff, when he says, there is something about the way I felt that gave me a line to the cup just as clearly as if it had been tattooed on my brain. He is perhaps unknowingly very aptly describing the latest scientific concept of just what happens in the human mind when we learn, remember, or imagine. So learning is present tense, remember is past tense, and imagine is future tense. But remember, all of this stuff, when it's done vividly in our brain and you put emotion with it, your brain doesn't know that it's not real in this moment. So if I relive a memory from the past and I have a lot of emotion for it, I'm reliving it legit right now. If I'm imagining something really good that I'm expecting in the future and I'm all excited about it, I'm actually living it legit right now, because my mind doesn't know the difference when I put all of that emotion to it. That's also another reason, especially in the present tense, if something happens that you could easily say, oh, this is bad and negative, I don't like it and it makes me feel bad, that's when you step back and disassociate yourself from that and saying, okay, let's look at what really happened. Oh, that person did that. Well, it's not my favorite, but I'm not going to attach my emotions to it and make it sink into my subconscious and make it tell me that I'm unvaluable or unworthy or whatever your old habits used to be. Okay, how your brain records success and failure. Such experts in the field of brain physiology as Dr. John C. Eccles and Sir Charles Sherrington, so Eccles and Sherrington, tell us that the human cortex is composed of some 10 billion neurons, each with numerous axons. Then the axons are the feelers or extension wires, okay? Little extension wires, which form synapses. So the synapses are the electrical connections between the neurons. So the neurons are connected by the synapses, okay? They make little connections all over in your mind. When we think and remember or imagine, these neurons discharge an electrical current which can be measured. So again, 10 billion neurons, people, that's a lot. So when we learn something or experience something, a pattern of neurons forming a chain or tattooing a pattern is set up in the brain tissue. So it connects these neurons and it forms a pattern, it forms a chain. This pattern is not in the nature of a physical groove or a track, okay, so it's not, but it's more of the nature of an electrical track. It's like an electrical connection. The arrangement of electrical connections between various neurons being somewhat similar to magnetic pattern recorded on tape. So that's the medium of the day. Remember, this is written in the 70s. He would have picked another technology had he written it today. The same neurons may thus be part of any number of separate and distinct patterns, making the human's brain capacity to learn and remember almost limitless. So we should all be learning. Figure out something you're passionate about and start learning and watch what happens. If you're passionate about something, you have the capacity to learn it and to keep getting deeper in that subject. So these patterns or engrams are stored away in the brain tissue for future use and are reactivated or replayed whenever we remember a past experience. Dr. Eccles says the profusion of interconnections among the cells in the gray matter is beyond imagination. So there's so many connections going on up here, you cannot even imagine it. It is ultimately so comprehensive that the whole cortex can be thought of as one great unit of integrated activity. If we now persist in regarding the brain as a machine, then we must say that it is by far the most complicated machine in existence. Okay, so it's infinitely more complicated than any of the most complex man-made machines and electrical computers. And that's from Physiology of Imagination, Scientific American, September 1958. Okay, in short, science confirms that there is a tattooing or action pattern of engrams in your brain for every successful action you have ever performed in the past. And if you can somehow furnish the spark to bring the action pattern into life or replay it, it will execute itself, and all you have to do is swing the clubs and let nature take its course. So you just do the action again, and it just becomes what you do. It's ingrained. The pattern is in there. When you reactivate successful action patterns, successful action patterns on this side, out of the past, you also reactivate the feeling tone or the winning feeling, which accompanies them. But by the same token, if you can recapture the winning feeling, you also evoke all of the winning actions that accompany it. So it's saying it goes together, and that's going to be key, because that's why he's going to tell you, learn a way to pull up that winning feeling from your past experiences so that you have that winning feeling, and then apply it to your next goal. Build success patterns into your gray matter. Okay, so this is actually really good, especially if you have little kids, and then also they're going to show it to you for how we can use it for learning new things for ourselves. President Eliot of Harvard once made a speech on what he called the habit of success. Many failures in elementary schools, he said, are due to the fact that students were not given at the very beginning a sufficient amount of work at which they could succeed, and thus they had never had an opportunity to develop the atmosphere of success, or what we like to call the winning feeling. Okay, so when a kid goes to school and all they do is get yelled at, and you're not good enough, and sit down in your street or seat, and blah 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 blah, and they start if they get a C and they're just getting bashed over the head for getting a C, because they don't get that winning feeling, that encouragement to do better, and look, you can do it, you did a good job, yay, because they don't get that, that's going to affect them later. And he's saying that is where we're having problems. Many failures in elementary schools are due to the fact that students were not given at the very beginning a sufficient amount of work in which they could succeed, and thus never had the opportunity to develop the atmosphere of success, or what we call the winning feeling. The student, he said, who had never experienced success early in his school life had no chance to develop the habit of success. The habitual feeling and so the habit of success is the habitual feeling of faith and confidence in undertaking new work. All right, so you can't be afraid of taking on new work, or you're going to get stagnant in life. He urged that teachers arrange work in early grades to ensure that the student experienced success. The work should be well within the ability of the student, yet interesting enough to arouse an enthusiasm and motivation. So you don't want to make dull that they get boring, but you want to make sure that they can get it and even reach a little bit further and get it and reach a little bit further and get it and keep growing. But get the success, and then reinstill in them the success. These small successes, said Dr. Eliot, would give the student the feeling of success, which would be a valuable ally in all future undertakings, and obviously as an adult later on in life. So how do you get this habit of success? So you just do something in the beginning that you can succeed on, and you build on it, is basically what it's saying. So by arranging things that we can succeed in little things, we can build an atmosphere of success, which will carry into larger undertakings. So start small. We can gradually undertake more difficult tasks, and after succeeding in them, be in a position to understand something even more challenging. Success is literally built upon success, and there is much truth in the saying, nothing succeeds like success. Okay, gradualness is the secret. So weightlifters, they start off with a weight they can lift, and boxers, they start off with easy opponents. And so basically the principle is merely to start off with an opponent over which you can succeed, and gradually take on more and more difficult tasks. And Pavlov was asked on his deathbed to give one last advice for his students on how to succeed, and his answer was passion and gradualness. So that's why a lot of people say, okay, you want something, and you say, oh, I want to be this amazing thing, and they say, okay, well, start where you are and start now. Just start where you are and start now. Start now in this small, and just build those baby steps, because before you know it, it'll be exponential, and you will get there. But most people, we don't start now. That's where, we stop before we even start. Okay, so Pavlov, passion and gradualness. And then sometimes it helps to drop back and lower our sights a bit and practice with a feeling of ease. So then he starts talking about boxers, or just athletes, or one speed typist who used to practice typing slow at half speed. Whenever he hit a plateau, and then he could increase his speed to something that seemed impossible. So you don't want to just burn yourself out. Every once in a while, you want to drop back to something that's easy, because you also want to have that feeling of ease and happiness and not struggle and pushing and work. You never want it to be forceful. Okay, how to play back your own built-in success patterns. Everyone has at some time or another been successful in the past. It does not have to have been a big success. So then he said, I mean, anything. The sack race at the office picnic, like it could be anything. Baking a cake and winning something on that, anything. What you succeed in is not important as the feeling of success which attended it. All that is needed is some experience where you succeed in doing what you wanted to, in achieving what you set out to achieve, and something that brought you some feeling of satisfaction. Go back in memory and relive those successful experiences in your imagination. Revive the entire picture as much detail as you can. So detail, everything is very specific. Remember that. What your goals are, what you imagine, everything. Bring it all in. In your mind's eye, you see not only the speech, the business deal, the golf tournament, whatever it was, accompanied with your success. So remember what your successful is. Picture the whole thing, what sounds were there, what was in the environment, what else was happening around you at the time, what objects were present, what time of year was it, were you cold or hot, and so forth. Make it so vivid and real in your mind. The more detailed you can make it, the better. If you can remember in sufficient detail what happened when you were successful at some point in your past, and you will find yourself feeling just as you felt then. Okay? And then you will find yourself feeling self-confident, because self-confidence is built upon memories of the past successes. So you're going to start getting all of this self-confidence and this happy, successful feelings. Now, once you get that, second part. Now, after arousing this general feeling of success, give your thoughts to the important sale or conference or speech or business deal or golf tournament. So now so first you get that, you relive something from the past and you get that successful feeling. Secondly, now you start focusing on what it is you want, like the business deal or whatever that you wish to succeed in now. Use your creative imagination to picture to yourself just how you would act and just how you would feel if you already succeeded. Okay, so that's what he's saying, because remember, the actions and the feelings are actually tied together. Positive and constructive worry. Okay, so mentally begin to play with the idea of complete and inevitable success. Don't force yourself. Don't attempt to coerce your mind. Don't try to use effort or willpower to bring about the desired conviction. Just do what you do when you worry, but only worry about a positive goal and a desirable outcome, rather than about a negative goal and an undesirable outcome. So don't begin to try to force yourself to have absolute faith in the desired success. So use the gradualness. So you usually begin with suppose. So just suppose such a thing could happen. You say mentally to yourself, and you repeat this and idea over and over to yourself, and you play with it. And then the next idea comes and you say, well, it is possible. It's a possibility. Well, after all, such a thing is possible. It could happen. And next you start with the mental imagery, and you begin to picture yourself and all of the various negative possibilities, and you play these imaginative pictures over and over to yourself, adding small details and refinements. And as the pictures become more and more real to you, appropriate feelings become and manifest themselves, just as if the imagined outcome had already happened. And this is the way that fear and anxiety develop. So that he just described to us what we're doing when we're worrying about something, and then we create the fear and the anxiety and all those negative feelings about this thing that didn't even happen yet. So now he's saying we want to flip that on its head, and we want to worry positively, basically, and build faith and courage. So faith and courage are developed in the exact same way, only your goals are different. If you're going to spend time and worry, why not worry constructively? Begin by outlining and defining yourself the most desirable possible outcome. Begin with your supposed, okay, suppose. So suppose the best possible outcome did actually come about. Next, remind yourself that after all, this could happen. Not that it will happen. Don't force it at will. Not that it will happen at this stage, but only that it could happen. And you can't deny that it could happen. It could happen. And don't tell yourself, oh, but that's doubtful. No, just say, it could happen. Yeah, it could happen. And don't put a lot of force on that. Remind yourself that after all, such a good thing and desirable outcome is possible. You can mentally accept and digest these gradual doses of optimism and faith. Okay, so side tangent here. Your subconscious mind has whatever your limiting beliefs are and wherever you got them from. So you're going to want to go back and find out what's true for you of your limiting beliefs in your subconscious mind. Because as you start following this and it works and you get the success, eventually what happens is something gets triggered in your subconscious mind with one of your limiting beliefs and you self-sabotage yourself. So just remember, he doesn't really cover that in here, but be aware of that because this does work, but you need to also be aware of your subconscious mind and your limiting beliefs and just go research on that. Okay, so you can mentally accept and digest these gradual doses of optimism and faith because it's possible. It could happen. Yeah, sure, that might happen. It's doable. Okay, after having thought of the desired end result as a definite possibility, begin to imagine what the desirable outcome would be like. Go over these mental pictures and delineate details and refinements. Play them over and over to yourself. As your mental images become more detailed, as they are repeated over and over again, you will find that once more appropriate feelings are beginning to manifest themselves. You're actually going to be happy or excited or relieved or whatever, just as the favorable outcome had already happened. This time, the appropriate feelings will be those of faith, self-confidence, courage, are all wrapped up into what he calls the winning feeling. Okay, so don't take counsel of your fears. Okay, so then he just quotes General George Patton, Hell for Leather, Old Blood and Guts, World War II fame. And he was asked if he had ever experienced fear before a battle. And he said, yes. He said he often experienced fear just before an important engagement and sometimes during a battle. But he added, I never take counsel of my fears. So fear and anxiety, it's not a sure sign that you're going to fail. It is important to understand that the failure feelings of fear, anxiety, and lack of self-confidence do not spring from a heavenly oracle. Okay, those come from inside of you. Yeah, those all come from inside of you. So you don't want to listen to those. They're not written in the stars. They're not holy gospel. They originate from your own mind. They're indicative only of attitudes of mind within you, not of external facts which are rigged against you. They mean only that you are underestimating your own abilities, or you're overestimating and exaggerating the nature of the difficulty before you, and that you are reactivating memories of the past rather than memories of past successes. Okay. Oh, yeah, you're reactivating memories of past failures rather than memories of past successes. So that's when you get all those fear and anxiety, and just do not consult your fear. That is all that they mean and all they will signify. They do not pertain or represent the truth concerning future events, but only your own mental attitude about the future event. Knowing this, you are free to accept or reject these negative feelings, to obey them, to either obey them or take counsel with them. So either let them rule you or to ignore their advice and go ahead. Moreover, you are in the position to use them to your own benefit. So now he's going to show you, if you do have those fear and anxiety feelings, either one, don't take counsel of them and just make them small, like just ignore them, or two, flip them and use them as a fuel to drive you to get to that goal line. And then another side tangent, fear and anxiety, that's totally different than when you have a gut feeling. When you have a strong gut feeling, double check, do some more homework, figure it out, because your gut feelings are not wrong. Okay, that's a different thing altogether. Okay, accept negative feelings as a challenge. So if we react to negative feelings aggressively and positively, they become challenges which automatically arouse more power and more ability within us. So basically, we rise to the challenge. The idea of difficulty, threat, menace arouses additional strength within us if we act to it aggressively rather than passively. And in the last chapter, we talked about excitement, and if interpreted correctly and employed correctly, it helps rather than hinders performance. Okay, so it all depends upon the individual and its attributes, whether the negative feelings are used as assets or liabilities. So basically, you're either going to use it as a rise to the challenge, or you're going to choose not to take counsel of your fears. Okay. And then he has some examples about Duke University Parapsychology Laboratory, Dr. J.B. Ryan, and basically they were doing some experiments with a deck of cards, and they were seeing how many correct calls that people could do for the deck of cards for telepathic ability. And most people, when you challenge them, they'd fall. And if you encourage them, they'd do better. And it was well out of just statistical probability of whether they'd call the next card right. But there was one guy, Pierce, who was really good, and he challenged that guy. And that guy took the challenge, he took it as a challenge and aggressively and positively went after it. And he called all 25 cards correctly. And then Lillian, a 9-year-old girl, she did better than average when there was nothing at stake. But then they said, okay, if you get them all correctly, the 25 cards, you get 50 cents. And so they said, the whole time her lips were moving, and she had called all 25 cards correctly. And when she was asked what she had been saying to herself the whole time, she said she revealed her aggressive, positive attitude to the threat, the threat, like the challenge, by saying, I was wishing all the time that I could get 25 correct. So basically, she was just focused on what it was. She didn't be like, oh, I can't do it, I couldn't do it. She's like, no, I can do this, I can do this. Now, that's, okay, so here we go. React aggressively to your own negative advice. Oh, and so it's not just other people that tell you can't do something and people crumble. A lot of times we have a voice in our head that's been programmed there. Remember, I told you your limiting beliefs that are in your subconscious mind. You'll have an internal voice that'll tell you can't do it. And that is when you have to step up and smash that voice and do it anyway. So whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Remember that saying? So you have to you have to get over yourself and not listen to those kinds of negative influences, whether they're external or internal. Okay, overcome evil with good. Feelings cannot be directly controlled by willpower. So you can't just force these feelings, but you can woo them, he says. You can encourage them. So a bad feeling is not dispelled by conscious effort or willpower. So you can't just will bad feelings away. It can be dispelled, however, by another feeling. So if you want to get rid of a bad or a negative feeling or thought, you got to replace it with something else. You can't just get rid of it by will and think another one isn't going to come, because you're still wired for the negative and the bad thoughts. A bad feeling is not dispelled by conscious effort or willpower. It can be dispelled, however, by another feeling. If we cannot drive out negative feeling by making a frontal assault upon it, we can accomplish the same result by substituting a positive feeling. Right there. You gotta substitute a positive feeling. You can't leave a void. Okay, remember that feelings follow imagery. Feelings coincide with and is appropriate to what our nervous system accepts as real or truth about the environment. Whenever we find ourselves experiencing undesirable feeling tones, we should not concentrate upon the undesirable feelings, even to the extent of driving it out. So don't focus on the negative. Instead, so this is key, instead, so as soon as you see yourself doing something or leaning towards something negative or some bad feelings, you're going to have those. Instead, we should immediately concentrate upon positive imagery, upon filling the mind with wholesome, positive, desirable images, imaginations, and memories. So images present, imaginations future, and memories of the past. Just pick anything positive and good to put into your mind. If we do this, the negative feelings will take care of themselves. Basically, they'll simply evaporate. We develop new feeling tones appropriate to the new imagery. On the other hand, we concentrate only upon driving out or attacking worry thoughts. We necessarily must concentrate upon negatives. We don't want to do that. You don't want to get rid of a negative by focusing on a negative. That never works. And that's why worrying doesn't work. And even if we are successful in driving out one worry thought, a new one or even several new ones are likely to rush in, since the general mental atmosphere is still negative. And then he says, Jesus warned us about sweeping the mind clean of one demon only to have 7 new ones move in if we left the house empty. So the house is the brain. He also advised us not to resist evil, but to overcome evil with good. So to get rid of negative thoughts and negative thinking, you have to actively work on it at first, and then over time it becomes a habit and it becomes easy, but you got to replace those with positive feelings and positive thoughts. And it's just easy to, if you don't have anything positive in the past memories to go back to, figure out something you actually like and here now and appreciate it. Okay, Dr. Matthew Chappelle, he's a modern psychologist. He wrote How to Control Worry, and he says, we are warriors because we practice worrying until we become adept at it. And he says we habitually indulge in negative imagery out of the past and anticipating the future. And this worry creates tension. And then the worrier makes an effort to stop worrying and is caught in a vicious cycle. And the effort increases the tension, and the tension provides a worrying atmosphere. So those people just start cycling and spinning down. You do not want to be around them. And they even know it, and they just keep doing it. And until they stop the cycle, it will not stop. The only cure for worry, he said, is to make a habit out of immediately substituting pleasant, wholesome mental images for unpleasant worry images. Each time the subject finds himself worrying, he is to use this as a signal to immediately fill the mind with pleasant and mental pictures out of the past or in anticipating pleasant future experiences. So as soon as you feel something, that use that as a trigger to make yourself think of something positive. And if this is something you are working on, then even keep a list right there so that you have all the things. You don't have to like think about it. You're like, oh, I love the beach, I love the sun, I love the flowers, you know, like whatever it is for you. In time, worry will defeat itself because it becomes a stimulus for practice. Every time you have the worry, it becomes its own stimulus for the anti-worry, for the positive. It becomes a stimulus for practicing anti-worrying. The warrior's job, says Dr. Chappelle, is not to overcome some particular source of worry, but to change the mental habits. Okay? And then one psychologist, David Seabury, said the best piece of advice his father ever gave to him was to practice positive mental imagery immediately on cue, so to speak, whenever he became aware of a negative feeling. Negative feelings literally defeated themselves by becoming sort of a bell. So they were a trigger. So negative feelings become a trigger, which he had a conditioned reflex to arouse a positive states of mind. So then he just was way moving towards positive, and it started to be a habitual things for him. Okay. In giving them another chance at capturing the winning feeling, I became successful in the art of having that same feeling. So basically now, this is Maxwell Maltz, and he's talking about all of the people that, you know, they had an accident and they needed some kind of surgery because they lost hope. And then the unfortunate people felt they could never have that winning feeling, yet by rehabilitating them and making them look normal, they substituted for their negative feelings one of hope in the future. So in giving them another chance at capturing that winning feeling, I myself became skillful at the art of having that same feeling. In helping them improve their self-image, I improved my own. All of us must do the same with our inner scars and our negative feelings if we want to get more living out of life. So whatever it is inside of you, you need to go through, dig it out, look it up, clean it out, and replace it with something positive. You have to do the work. Okay, so the choice is up to you. Within you is a vast mental storehouse of past experiences and feelings, both failures and successes. So these experiences and feelings are recorded on the neural engrams of your gray matter. There are recordings of stories with happy endings and recordings of stories with unhappy endings. One is as true as the other. One is as real as the other. This is key. The choice is up to you as to which you select for playback. Another interesting scientific finding about these engrams is that they can be changed or modified somewhat as a tape recording may be changed by dubbing in additional material, by replacing an old recording with a new one by recording over it. Okay, so he's not saying that you can change the past. He's saying you can change how you see the past or how you view the past. So a lot of times when you start studying this stuff, people will tell you, yeah, negative things happen, bad things happened in their life, but they found the blessing in it, or they found the lesson in it, or they found something that made them a better person because of it. And none of them want to go back and live it and none of them want anyone else to live it again. But they found the lesson, they found the blessing. And so now when they look at that past hurtful thing, that hurtful experience, they don't have all the anger and the hurt and the yucky feelings, okay? So Dr. Eccles and Sherrington tell us that the engrams in the human brain tend to change slightly with each time they are played back. They take on some of the tone and temper of our present mood, thinking, and attitudes toward them. Again, so one of the key things you're going to find out is eventually at the end, you have to have all the forgiveness for everything that's happened. Doesn't mean you have to have relationships with people that screwed you over. It means you have to have the forgiveness and let it go for yourself. That way you're not drinking the poison and expecting them to die, okay? Also, each individual neurons may become part of perhaps 100 separate distinct patterns. So basically all these neurons do a whole bunch of other different things. And if you start wiring yourself more towards positive, those neurons are going to just start kind of looking at things positively. They're not going to be negative. Otherwise, you see people who walk around and everything is not negative, and even things that are like totally neutral, they become negative. That's because they're geared toward that way. Okay, the neuron in the original engram, of which it was a part, takes on some of the characteristics of subsequent engrams of which it becomes a part, and in doing so changes somewhat the original engram. So something that happened negative, that same neuron is going to get used for something that's positive, because you're going to work on making sure you think positively, and over time you're going to lean, your whole personality is going to start leaning more positively. You're not going to get stuck in the past. This is not only very interesting, but encouraging. It gives us reason to believe that adverse and unhappy childhood experiences, traumas, etc., are not as permanent as fatal as some earlier psychologists would have had us believe. We now know that not only does the past influence the present, but that the present clearly influences the past. Again, so being grateful and being happy and positive, even though bad things happen in the past, and one of the easiest ways to do it is to find a lesson or find a blessing, as hard as it may be, okay? And just remember, thank God I'm here today, and I have this healthy body, and I have these choices that I can make, and and focus on the gratitude moving forward. So, because that way you can have the present influencing, the past and moving you towards a present future. Okay. So we now know that not only does the past influence the present, but that the present clearly influences the past. In other words, we are not doomed or downed by the past. Because we did have unhappy childhood experiences or traumas which left engrams behind does not mean that we are at the mercy of these engrams, or that our patterns of behavior are set, predetermined, and unchangeable. Our present thinking, our present mental habits, our attitudes toward past experiences, and our attitudes towards the future all have an influence upon old recorded engrams. The old can be changed, modified, replaced by our present thinking. So we can become whoever we want to become, and we can become super positive and happy and have a fulfilling life. Your past does not dictate your future unless you live in your past, okay? Your past does not say who and what you can and can't have unless you live in the past. That's the choice where you're going to have to make, and that's coming up. Okay, old recordings can be changed. Another interesting finding is that the more a given engram is activated or replayed, the more potent it becomes, so it becomes stronger. Eccles and Sherrington tell us that performance of engrams is derived from synaptic efficacy, the efficiency and ease of connections between the individual neurons that make up the chain, okay? So basically it gets stronger with use. And further, that synaptic efficiency improves with use and diminishes with disuse, so it gets stronger if you use it more. Here again, we have good scientific ground for forgetting and ignoring those past unhappy experiences from the past and concentrating upon happy and the pleasant, like positive things. You want to do that, so by so doing, we strengthen those engrams having to do with success and happiness, and weaken those having to do with failure and unhappiness. Okay, there's this thing that oh my goodness, I'm forgetting his name. I'll think of it in a second. Oh my gosh, I forgot his name. Anyway, he says, you see these people and they go and they tell everybody, let's say everybody has a bag of poop that you carry around, right? These people will go and they'll grab out all this poop and they'll show it to everybody, like, look at all this bad stuff that happened to me. And then they'll put it all over themselves and look, and this happened to me. And they are the ones drudging it out of their past and putting it all over themselves and wearing that and telling everybody and talking about it. And they're making it stronger in their brain. They are reinforcing it. And then, so he's saying, don't talk about it. Like, make peace with it, you know, work through it, get a counselor, get a psychologist, get a coach, get whatever you need, work through it, but put it away. Don't be pulling out your bags of poop and sharing it with the whole world, okay? Don't do that. Dr. Wayne Dyer, there you go, that's his name. You go find him and he'll talk about it. It's a really good concept. Okay, these concepts have developed not from wild speculation and a weird mumbo jumbo about mentally constructed straw men such as the id or the superego and like, but from sound scientific research into brain physiology. They are based on observable facts and phenomena, not fanciful theories. They go a long way towards restoring the dignity of man as a responsible child of God, able to cope with his past and plan his future, as opposed to the image of a man helpless victim of his past experiences. Okay? So we are supposed to be able to cope with your past, like figure out what it was, what got you to this point, and plan your own future. You are not a victim. The new concept does carry a responsibility, however. Okay, this is probably the biggest thing I have read in this book thus far. If you get this book, and I totally recommend you do, okay, Psycho-Cybernetics, if you get this book, read chapter 14. Like, read it until you get just this chapter alone. But here it is. The new concept does carry a responsibility, however. Huge, huge, huge. Here we go. No longer can you derive sickly comfort from blaming your parents, society, your early experiences, or the injustices of others for your present troubles. This is like some real talk, okay? These things may and should help you understand how you got where you are, okay? So that's the history, and that explains who I am today and how I got here. Blaming them or even yourself for past mistakes, however, will not solve your problems or improve your present or your future. There is no merit in blaming yourself, okay? There's no merit in blaming yourself, so stop it, let it go. The past explains how you got here, but where you go from here is your responsibility. Your choice, it's your choice to make. The choice is yours. Like a broken phonograph, you can keep playing the same recording, the same old broken record of the past, reliving past injustices, pitting yourself for past mistakes, all of these which reactivates failure patterns and failure feelings which color your present or your future, right? Just like Tony Robbins always says, your past does not dictate your future unless you live in your past. Everybody, all these teachers say it. So just pick up anything and you're going to find that. So here we go again. So like a broken phonograph, you can keep playing the same old broken record of the past, reliving past injustices, pitting yourself for past mistakes, all of which reactivates failure patterns and failure feelings which color your present and your future. So you're going to do all the failures from the past and make it your failures in the present, and it's also going to be failures in the future. Or, okay, this is the key. This is huge. Or if you choose, you can put on a new record and reactivate success patterns and that winning feeling which help you do better in the present and promise a more enjoyable future. And again, make sure you go and find out about your personal limiting beliefs. They are buried in your subconscious mind, because even if you do everything in here and it will work, you will reach a level of success and happiness, but at some point you will self-sabotage yourself because that programming is still in you, okay? When your phonograph is playing music you don't like, you do not try to force it to do better. You merely change the record being played, and the music takes care of itself, okay? So remember, all the negative, you have to replace negatives with positive. You can't just like get rid of negatives. You can't will it and force it out of your mind. You've got to make conscious effort, and there is some work to be done, but after a while it becomes habitual. And if you make the negative things a trigger to force yourself to, oh yes, no, I'm going to think about the positive, I'm going to find the blessing, I'm going to find the lesson, then you'll start leaning that way, and you will see changes in just your physiology and how you feel, okay? As long as the same mental imagery, okay, the cause, occupies your attention, No amount of effort will change the results. Instead, try putting on a new record. Change your mental imagery and the feelings will take care of themselves. So change your mental imagery to positive, happy things and the feelings will take care of themselves. Okay, so everyone, sorry it ran so long. Really good chapter, like the best chapter of the book so far. We only have one chapter left, and do something today that your future self will be thankful you did.